You just yelled at your child again. The guilt hits immediately. You see their hurt expression, maybe tears, and you think, I swore I wouldn't do this today. You feel like a failure, like you're damaging your child, like you're becoming the parent you promised yourself you'd never be. And here's the worst part. You don't even know why you lost control. One minute, everything was fine. The next, you were screaming over spilled milk or forgotten homework, or the same argument you've had 100 times before. Here's what most parents don't understand, Mel. Yelling isn't a parenting problem, it's a nervous system problem. You're not a bad parent because you yell. You're a dysregulated parent who hasn't learned how to manage your own emotional triggers while simultaneously managing your child's behavior. And that's a skill that can be learned, which means this pattern can absolutely be changed starting today. The research on yelling is sobering. Studies show that harsh verbal discipline, including yelling, has similar effects on children as physical punishment. It increases behavioral problems rather than reducing them, damages self-esteem, increases risk of depression and anxiety, and most importantly, it teaches children that losing control is an acceptable response to frustration. Your children are learning how to handle anger by watching how you handle yours. But here's the hopeful truth. You can break this cycle. Thousands of parents who thought they'd always be yellers have learned to regulate their emotions and respond to challenging behavior with calm firmness instead of explosive anger. It requires understanding what's actually happening in your brain and body when you yell, identifying your specific triggers, and implementing concrete strategies that interrupt the pattern before it starts. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 proven steps to stop yelling at your kids. These aren't just tips about taking deep breaths or counting to 10, though those can help. These are comprehensive strategies that address the root causes of parenting anger and give you a complete framework for responding to challenging situations without losing control. If you're exhausted from the cycle of yelling guilt, promising to do better, and then yelling again, and you're ready to become the calm, regulated parent you know your children need, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share research-based parenting strategies every week that address the real issues beneath behavioral struggles, helping you create a calmer, more connected family dynamic. The first thing you need to understand is what's happening in your brain when you yell. When your child's behavior triggers frustration, your amygdala, the emotional alarm system in your brain, perceives it as a threat. Your body floods with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing you for fight or flight. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, your thinking becomes narrower and more reactive. In this state, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thinking and impulse control, goes offline. You're literally operating from your primitive brain that's designed for survival, not for thoughtful parenting. This is why you say things you don't mean, why you can't think clearly about consequences, and why you feel out of control. You are out of control, neurologically speaking. Understanding this brain science is crucial because it means you can't just willpower your way out of yelling. Once you're in that activated state, your ability to choose a different response is severely compromised. The solution isn't trying harder to control yourself in the moment. The solution is catching yourself earlier in the escalation cycle before your thinking brain goes offline. Step 1 is learning to recognize your early warning signs. Every parent has physical and emotional cues that appear before they lose control, but most aren't paying attention to them. These might include tension in your jaw or shoulders, heat rising in your face, a pit in your stomach, rapid breathing, clenched fists, or a sense of urgency and tunnel vision. Emotionally, you might notice irritation, feeling disrespected or not listened to, or a sense that you need to gain control immediately. Start paying attention to these signals over the next week. Notice what happens in your body and mind in the minutes before you yell. Write them down if it helps. Once you can identify your early warning signs, you have a window of opportunity to intervene before you reach the point of no return. When you notice these signals appearing, That's your cue to implement regulation strategies before continuing the interaction with your child. This might look like you ask your son to put his shoes on for the third time and he ignores you. You feel heat rising in your chest and your jaw clenching. Instead of escalating to yelling, you recognize these signs and say, "I need a minute," and step into another room to regulate. This isn't avoidance or giving up. It's strategic intervention that prevents an outcome you'll regret. Step 2 is identifying your specific triggers. Not all child behaviors provoke the same response in all parents. What sends you into rage might not bother another parent, and vice versa. Your triggers are often connected to your own childhood experiences, your values, your current stress levels, and your unmet needs. Understanding what specifically sets you off gives you power over those triggers. Common parenting triggers include feeling disrespected or ignored when children don't listen the first time, whining or complaining, siblings fighting, lying or dishonesty, seeing your child hurt someone else, your child making the same mistake repeatedly, chaos and mess, or being questioned or argued with. Beyond these behavioral triggers, situational factors matter too. You're more likely to yell when you're stressed about other things, sleep-deprived, hungry, rushing, or feeling unsupported. Once you identify your specific triggers, you can prepare for them differently. If you know that morning chaos when you're trying to get everyone out the door triggers your anger, you can build in extra time, prepare more the night before, or have a plan for how you'll regulate when things go wrong. If you know that sibling fighting is your biggest trigger, you can work on strategies for addressing it and have a script ready for when it happens. Also examine whether your triggers are reasonable or whether they're more about your own issues than your child's actual behavior. If you rage when your child questions your decisions, that might be more about your need for control or respect issues from your own childhood than about their behavior actually being problematic. If you lose it over normal developmental behavior like toddler tantrums or teenage eye-rolling, you might need to adjust your expectations rather than expecting your child to change. This doesn't mean excusing genuinely problematic behavior. It means distinguishing between this behavior is actually harmful and needs to be addressed versus this behavior is annoying to me but developmentally normal versus this behavior is triggering my own unresolved issues. Only the first category requires firm discipline. The others require either acceptance or working on your own reactions. Step 3 is creating physical space when you feel yourself escalating. This is one of the most powerful but underutilized strategies for stopping yelling. When you recognize your early warning signs and feel yourself moving toward dysregulation, physically remove yourself from the situation before you explode. This isn't abandoning your child or avoiding the issue. It's giving yourself the space needed to regulate so you can address the behavior effectively. Tell your child clearly what you're doing and why. I'm feeling really frustrated right now, and I need a few minutes to calm down before we talk about this. Then go to another room, step outside, or create whatever distance you need. Your child might protest, especially if they're young, but it's far better for them to be upset about you taking space than to experience you yelling at them. During this break, focus on physiological regulation. Your body is flooded with stress hormones that need to metabolize before you can think clearly. Deep breathing helps activate your parasympathetic nervous system. Try box breathing. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. Repeat until you feel your body calming. Physical movement helps too. Do jumping jacks, go for a quick walk, or splash cold water on your face. The key is not returning to the situation until you genuinely feel calm. If you go back while still activated, you'll probably still yell. It might take 5 minutes, or it might take 20. That's okay. The behavior issue can wait. Teaching your child that adults take breaks to manage their emotions is far more valuable than whatever immediate consequence you think you need to impose. Some parents resist this strategy because they think it lets their child get away with the behavior while they're taking space. But discipline is most effective when you're calm anyway. A consequence delivered when you're dysregulated becomes about your anger, not about teaching. A consequence delivered when you're regulated becomes about the child's learning and growth. Step 4 is lowering your overall stress and meeting your own needs. This is the piece most parenting advice skips, but it's crucial. You're not yelling just because your child misbehaves. You're yelling because your child's misbehavior is the straw that breaks the camel's back when you're already overwhelmed, depleted, and running on empty. Think about when you yell most. It's probably not when you've had a good night's sleep, eaten well, had some time to yourself, and are feeling generally calm and resourced. It's when you're exhausted, stressed about money or work or relationships, haven't had a break in days, or are dealing with your own anxiety or depression. Your capacity to regulate is directly related to how well your own needs are being met. This means that addressing parenting anger requires addressing your own well-being. Are you getting adequate sleep? If not, this needs to be a priority, even if it means asking for help or adjusting routines. Are you eating regularly? Blood sugar crashes significantly impact emotional regulation. Are you getting any time for yourself? Even small breaks matter. Are you moving your body? Exercise is one of the most effective stress management tools available. Beyond physical needs, what about emotional support? Do you have people you can talk to about parenting struggles without judgment? Are you carrying resentment toward a partner about unequal parenting load? Are you dealing with your own trauma or mental health issues that need professional support? These bigger issues don't disappear just because you're a parent. They affect your parenting and need to be addressed. Many parents, especially mothers, feel guilty about prioritizing their own needs. But you cannot pour from an empty cup. When you're depleted, you have nothing left for patience, regulation, or thoughtful responses. When you're resourced, you have capacity to handle your child's big emotions and challenging behaviors without losing control of your own emotions. Step 5 is repairing after you do yell, because you will still yell sometimes, especially in the beginning. Changing deeply ingrained patterns takes time, and perfection isn't the goal. What matters is what you do after you lose control. The repair is actually more important than never making mistakes, because repair teaches children crucial lessons about relationships, accountability, and forgiveness. When you've yelled, wait until you're both calm, then apologize genuinely and specifically. Not a dismissive, sorry I yelled, but something like, I yelled at you earlier when I was frustrated about the shoes, and that wasn't okay. You didn't deserve to be spoken to that way. I was having trouble managing my own frustration, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. I'm working on handling my feelings better. This apology does several things. It models taking responsibility for your actions. It shows your child that even adults make mistakes and can acknowledge them. It separates their behavior from your reaction, making clear that while their behavior might have been problematic, your yelling was your responsibility, not theirs. And it demonstrates that relationships can survive rupture through repair. After apologizing, you can still address the original behavior issue if needed. The shoes still need to go on when I ask, and we need to figure out how to make that happen. But that's separate from me yelling, which was my problem to fix. This shows children that your anger doesn't erase their responsibility for their choices, but their choices also don't justify your anger. Don't over-apologize or create a situation where your child feels responsible for managing your emotions. Some parents become so guilt-ridden after yelling that they seek reassurance from their child or become overly permissive to compensate. The apology should be clear and sincere, but not so heavy that your child feels they need to comfort you or worry about your emotional state. Step 6 is developing alternative scripts and responses that you can use instead of yelling. Often, parents yell because they don't know what else to do. They've asked nicely 5 times, the behavior continues, and they don't have another tool in their toolbox, so they escalate to volume. Having prepared responses gives you options beyond either being ineffective or exploding. Instead of raising your voice when you're not being listened to, try getting physically close, making eye contact, and speaking more quietly. I need you to stop what you're doing and look at me. I've asked you 3 times to turn off the tablet. It's time now. The quiet intensity often gets more attention than yelling, and it doesn't activate your child's stress response. Instead of yelling threats, state calm consequences. If you choose not to put your toys away now, you're choosing for them to be put away for the rest of the week. Then follow through without anger. The consequence teaches, not your volume. Instead of yelling in frustration about repeated behavior, try, I'm noticing this keeps happening. We need to figure out why and what will help. Let's talk about it when we're both calm. For younger children who respond to your requests by ignoring or defying, try physical guidance while narrating, I asked you to come to the table for dinner. I see you want to keep playing. Dinner time isn't negotiable, so I'm going to help your body make the choice. Then gently guide them to the table. No yelling required. Boundary maintained. Practice these alternative responses when you're calm. Literally rehearse them out loud so they're available to you in the moment. When your stress response is activated, you revert to what's most practiced. If yelling is most practiced, that's what comes out. But if you've practiced calm, firm alternatives, those become accessible even under stress. Also recognize that sometimes the most effective response is to do less, not more. When your child is already dysregulated, adding your intensity only escalates the situation. Staying calm, giving space, and waiting for regulation before addressing the issue is often more effective than any words you could say, yelled or not. Beyond these 6 core steps, there are additional strategies that can support your journey to stop yelling. First, examine your expectations. Are they realistic for your child's age and developmental stage? A 3-year-old who can't sit still through a long meal isn't being defiant, they're being 3. A teenager who questions your rules isn't being disrespectful, they're developing autonomy. When our expectations don't match developmental reality, we set ourselves up for frustration and anger. Second, increase positive interactions with your child outside of conflict moments. When most of your interactions involve correcting, directing, or managing behavior, everyone's baseline stress is higher. Make time for play, connection, and genuine enjoyment of each other. This relationship equity makes challenging moments easier for both of you. Your child is more likely to cooperate when they feel connected to you, and you're less likely to explode when you're not already resentful or disconnected. Third, get really honest about what's driving your anger beyond the immediate behavior. Are you yelling because your child won't share toys? Or are you yelling because you feel like a failure as a parent when they don't share? Are you yelling because homework isn't done, or because their academic struggle triggers your anxiety about their future? Often our biggest reactions are about our own fears, shame, or unmet needs, not really about the child's behavior. Fourth, consider whether you need professional support. If you're yelling daily despite trying these strategies, if you have a history of trauma that's affecting your parenting, if you're dealing with depression or anxiety, or if your anger feels out of control in ways that scare you, a therapist can help. There's no shame in getting support. Parenting is incredibly challenging, and doing it while managing your own mental health or past trauma is even harder. If you're committed to breaking the yelling cycle and want more research-based strategies for staying calm under parenting pressure, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We share practical parenting insights every week that address the root causes of common struggles, helping you become the regulated, connected parent your children need. Also recognize that your children's behavior might be communication about their own needs. Children often act out when they're hungry, tired, overstimulated, disconnected from parents, anxious, or dealing with something they can't articulate. Before assuming defiance or manipulation, consider whether their behavior is telling you something about an unmet need. Addressing the need often resolves the behavior, which removes the trigger for your anger. Remember that change takes time, and you won't be perfect. You're rewiring neural pathways that have been forming for years, possibly decades if yelling was modeled in your own childhood. There will be setbacks. You'll have days where you yell multiple times and feel like you've made no progress. That's normal and expected. What matters is the overall trajectory, not perfection in every moment. Celebrate small victories. The first time you recognize your warning signs and take space before yelling, that's huge. The first time you use a calm alternative script successfully, acknowledge it. The first time your child sees you apologize and repair, you're teaching something profound. These accumulate over time into genuine lasting change. Also, when you do yell less, notice the difference in your family dynamic. Your children will likely be calmer, more cooperative, and more connected to you. You'll feel less guilty and more confident in your parenting. The household stress level will decrease. These positive changes reinforce your commitment to staying regulated even when it's hard. Your children don't need perfect parents. They need parents who are trying, growing, and willing to acknowledge and repair mistakes. They need to see that adults can struggle with big emotions too, and that we can learn better ways to handle them. By working on stopping yelling, you're not just changing how you parent, you're breaking generational cycles and teaching your children emotional regulation by example. That's one of the most valuable gifts you can give them.